My name is McRell, and this is my honors biology project for science fair. Just loading my presentation. I performed my project on the effect of different pHs on earthworms. I decided to run this experiment so I could find the best pH in water for worms so that they can better help redistribute the nutrients in soil as well as aerate soil and yield better crops. Earthworms are extremely important for the growth of crops, and if they are stronger and bigger, they can help farmers. If you could help them grow, it would be extremely helpful, and changing the pH of the water is not that difficult, easier than using pesticides or growth enhancers. That's why I wanted to find the pH for worms so that they can thrive and help farmers. In the studies that I read and other general research I performed, I found that worms would do better in a high or medium pH environment. My hypothesis was that worms are affected by the toxicity of their environment, and my experiment was based on the effect of different pHs on the growth and mass of earthworms. For my methods, I had to find 4 pHs that I would be testing the change in weight for worms. And so my control had a pH of 7.6, and then using, I have a teaspoon of baking soda and 1 gallon of my control, it brought my pH to around an 8, making my high pH solution. I used a half an ounce of white vinegar in a gallon of water to make my low pH of around 4.5. Then using a mix of both, and then using baking soda and white vinegar, I eventually reached a pH of 7, my medium pH, which is neither toxic nor alkaline. I then found 4 pots and filled them halfway with nutrient-rich soil. I then weighed and averaged 10 worms for each pot, placed them in the soil, and then filled each pot the rest of the way. I then labeled each one A, B, C, and D, and then assigned 1 pot to be my control pot, 1 to be my low pH, another medium pH, and then the last to be my high pH. I then watered each pot with 80 milliliters of their respective type of water and then placed them in a safe and dark space. I weighed and averaged worms in each pot every 3 days, and then every other time I weighed them, I watered them with 80 milliliters of their respective water. And then I repeated the last step until I had 10 sets of data for each pot, and then I repeated all this for trial number 2. My data, I actually found that worms will do better in a low pH environment than low or medium pH environment than in a higher pH environment. In trial 1, both the control and the high had a loss in mass, whereas my low and medium both had a 0.2 grams positive change in mass. And then trial 2, my low and medium stayed the same, but in my control and high, they still lost mass. For my conclusion, I found that water that has a lower or medium pH is actually better for the growth of earthworms. Specifically, lower pHs are better, but both low and medium pHs had good results. Most tap waters are slightly above a medium pH, so it would work simply if farmers lowered the pH of the waters using either baking soda or something else along those lines, so that they can bolster the earthworms and then the crops that live in them in the same fields. If I were to run this experiment again, I would run it for much longer, maybe even a year, with many, many more worms, and it'd be many more worms because I would have so many different levels of pHs. And then also try and use a more accurate scale. And if I were to perform it more over like a 3 to 6 month period, I would try and start it in the spring or early summer, because it's better for the worms' growth. It won't affect them poorly, which may have happened because mine took place during the winter and it was cold. Thank you for listening to my Honors Bio Science Fair project.